Good morning.
How's it going?
Oh, not too bad, you?
Good. I'm in Colorado.
Yeah, right?
How much better can it get?
It can't, I don't think.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, welcome back to another glorious day on the road here on the Pirate Ragnar Motovlog channel. Day 5. From deep in the heart of Colorado, through the Navajo Nation, and well into northern Arizona. It was a long, long day, and boy oh boy was it a cinematic day. At any time that we can, why don't we just let the 2018 version of me catch us up on the progress so far.
Okay. Day 5. I'm in Gunnison, Colorado. Anyway, I'm about to just tighten my chain up. I waxed it and everything last night, but I haven't actually tightened it, and I didn't pull the tools out last night. They're at the bottom of the bag because they're heaviest, so they sit at the very bottom of the saddlebag. So I just didn't want to dig them out last night. By the time I did, it was pretty dark, so I just kind of waxed it up and went on with my night. But I'm gonna go do that real quick, and then I just have to pack up. I've been kind of getting ready for the last little bit. And yeah, it's gonna be a big day again today. At least 9 hours, maybe a bit more than that, depending on how fast I actually do it. But I should be arriving in Sedona today. Then I'll have a few days to just relax until Darren and Tesney's wedding, and then I will take off for the East Coast. So there's a few repairs, obviously, that I'm going to need to do when I get to Sedona, but I will deal with that when I get there. Cool. All right, let's go do the chain.
The morning maintenance routine, or rather, the routine I should do in the evenings, but after a long day on the road, I seem to make loads of excuses to do it in the morning instead, so the morning maintenance routine. As a bit of foreshadowing, and something that won't come up significantly until we roll into Baton Rouge, Louisiana later in the trip, I did have an opportunity to learn some very important maintenance tips on this trip. And by learn, I do mean the hard way, but that will come up in a future video. With the sun up and the wind blowing, I was eager to get on the road and let Malls eat up the rest of Colorado. It was a given from the start that today was going to be a long one. Pushing at least 900 kilometers, I was bound and determined to be in Sedona, Arizona by nightfall.
Okay, now to warm it up and check the oil.
Start pouring and you don't can see all of them. Actually, one of the things to note is I guess the changes in elevation up and down. My front caliper brake reservoir was too full.
It's hard to see in the footage,
Right in there.
but the brake fluid reservoir expanded significantly due to the pressure changes of the altitude. It forced some of the fluid inside to leak out, and for the reservoir to bow out slightly. It's nothing too serious this time, but something worth noting for future trips. But with that out of the way, Malls and I get to stretch our legs on some open road before the altitude and lakeside drive take their effect. Pulling over to take out some warmer gloves and another layer gives the briefest moment to just take in the scene around me. The brilliant ride the day before helped set my mood for the journey ahead today. Having done the research, I know the stretch through the Navajo Nation can be taxing, and a little iffy with only 150 kilometers in your tank. But there was the rest of Colorado before that, and the stretch between Flagstaff and Sedona that I dreamed about so many times already. Today was the day. Riding west along the Gunnison River, with Mesa Country to the south, the morning is spent skirting the various reservoirs formed along the Gunnison, and it turns canyons into lakeside drives. The road kept to much of the river's natural flow though, so windy roads all morning long. I really felt in my element. The roads were open for me, the sky was clear, and I had an epic day in sight. Excited at this point was an understatement, and it's days like this that make anything else the trip throws at you totally worth it. A quick stop to adjust some settings, better just to pull over than mess with it on the road, and then back underway. The call of coffee would have been quite loud at this point, so it's fuel for me and Malls at the next stop. Until then, let's just enjoy this glorious view. If you've made it this far into the video, you are an absolute legend, and I thank you. Be sure to check out the Pirate Ragnar on Instagram and Twitter for more regular updates, and if you haven't already, do check out the 4-part Muskoka, Ontario road trip series. Links down in the description. As usual, I tried my very best back during the trip to turn the music off a bit each day, turn the mic on, and record some on-the-road narration. We lucked out because the microphone and audio software decided to play well together, and clarity was greatly improved for today's content. God, I wish it was consistent because some of the audio is just... You know what? I won't bore you with those details. Without further ado, road ramblings.
The thing that I've learned in day 4 and 5 more than anything is that if you own a motorcycle, or you ride motorcycles, or you dream about riding motorcycles, then you have no reason not to be in Colorado as soon as you can. And as far as I can see, as often as you can. This state is simply outstanding. The roads and the topography and the riding conditions. I mean, in fairness, this is the state that I got hit a whole bunch of times by hail. So I'm not saying everything's perfect, but man, beautiful run this morning. I couldn't even turn the camera off. I don't like to do more than 2-minute chunks, 2 to 3 minute chunks. I usually aim for about a minute while I'm riding. Otherwise, you end up way too much footage. And it's not like you can't use all that footage, but you only have so much space to store it, particularly on a really long trip like this one, because I'm already running out of places to dump the footage on the 3 hard drives. I mean, it's all redundant. I haven't copied 3 times, which in some senses is silly, but I'm just paranoid about losing data. Anyway, but yeah, I did a run this morning through the canyons, and but that run, I don't know, I probably let the camera run for like 7-8 minutes maybe, I don't know. It was a decent stretch though, because it didn't stop. It was just constant, beautiful turns and technical corners and canyon walls and a river on the side, and it was just beautiful. Gorgeous. You guys need to come to the state. I don't know if you see what I'm seeing now. I spent all morning coming down out of the mountains along a beautiful lake. But now I'm kind of back in kind of like low country, lower, about 6,000 feet, just under 6,000 feet. And at the highest I've been up to, I think, 11,000. I've obviously come back down quite a bit. I'm not sure if I end up going back up. I think I do. I think to get through to Arizona, I'm stuck going through the mountains that you guys see kind of ahead of me. I saw a sign this morning that was a little unnerving for me. I don't know if I caught it on camera or not. It said it was encouraging motorists to check their blind spots because this year to date they've already had 53 motorcyclist deaths. That's tragic. Our responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, as a motorcyclist on the road. If you actually want to know that you're doing your job, then what your assumption needs to be is that every single car on the road that you see is actively trying to kill you. By that, I don't mean that you need to think every driver, is a sociopath and homicidal. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that at any moment, you need to be anticipating that person's intent is to kill you, and knowing what kind of what kind of reaction you're going to have to compensate for it. So at any moment, one of these trucks or this car that's passing me could swerve into my lane. What am I going to do about it? You know, if I start seeing them swerve now, do I move to the right? Do I move to the left? Are there cars behind them that are potentially going to keep going straight? Are there cars behind me? There's all kinds of things that I need to be considering, and I need to know at any given time exactly what options I'm deciding that I'm going to take. That's my responsibility as a rider. It's not a guarantee even then that you're going to escape everything unharmed. Not by a long shot. I'm just saying that's our responsibility. I don't know how else to look at it. And I mean, if people genuinely feel I'm wrong or can open up a discussion about this and things, I am not in any way trying to detract from the responsibility of cagers, okay? Like, obviously, every single person is responsible for their own actions. So this isn't me trying to say that I'm responsible or we're as motorcyclists responsible for everything on the road and that the people in the cars and vehicles are not. No. I'm saying because we are all personally accountable for every single one of our choices and actions, that we choose to ride motorcycles means it's our responsibility to be hyper-vigilant and anticipating drivers' reactions, being very, very aware of them, giving them the berth that they need, and not actively trying to piss people off. I'm not saying that's the cause of most fatalities or anything. Stupidity undoubtedly is. But anyway, well, that's my 2 cents. So I should get into Sedona, Arizona today. I've been riding for about an hour and a half already. A really phenomenal ride this morning. Like, if the rest of the day is boring, today will still be like calendar worthy because of the ride this morning.
Let's take a moment to discuss malls a little bit more closely, and the missteps I've made to date. As noted in a previous episode, I'd forgotten to do another oil change after installing the new clutch. By day 5, I'd convinced myself this was a rather tragic mistake, but in the grand scheme of things, I really haven't the foggiest idea. Shortly after this trip, some knocking started, and it turned out to be a slipped crankshaft bearing and a now mangled crankshaft surface. Since then, I've done a damn good job convincing myself it was those nasty little floating bits of crap that come off your clutch plates and ended up getting lodged in the bearing. Of course, that would mean that 4 oil filters and 4 oil changes before that happened never seemed to have cleaned it out, and it would also mean that my thrashing the hell out of the bike after I got home from this trip somehow had nothing to do with the crankshaft slipping. Logic and common sense would clearly indicate something else, but I've never claimed to not be stubborn. So, rant done, how does this affect the trip we're watching today? Something that isn't immediately obvious for most of the video content, but that does show up in a number of photos, is the nearly constant presence of a bottle of oil. Every 150 kilometers, I was checking the oil and topping it up when needed, because Malls continued to leak oil from places she'd never leaked from before, at least not in front of me. I was, at the time, mighty concerned with the fact that I would go through so much oil. But upon reflection after and discussions with lots of people that know way more than me, does seem to indicate that it's a pretty normal thing on longer trips, particularly with older bikes. Let me break it down real quick. Oil changes with heat and shearing. When an engine runs for an hour or 2 and then gets to cool down, the oil only gets so hot and only runs at speed at that hot temperature for a short time. Once you start running the engine for longer than that, the oil inside thoroughly heats up, and now you're running the engine at full speed for literal hours and hours with thoroughly heated oil. Heated oil is far more viscous, obviously, and worked oil molecules do shear over time, essentially making them smaller, though that is an incredibly oversimplified explanation. The long short of it is, gaskets that would normally hold back oil under normal operations tend to leak the sheared, ultra-hot oil out under pressure. So you're not so much consuming all that extra oil as losing more of it to the road. Anyways, this is my current understanding, and I'm hoping yet again that smarter people than I can enlighten us all to the mechanics of this. Riding down out of Colorado and toward the Arizona border, the next leg of the trip is through the Ute Mountain, Navajo Nation, and Hopi reservations. And that 450 kilometers was going to be a hot, dry, and as it turns out, very, very windy stretch. With one last chance to fill up before riding into the dust, I pull over for a bite to eat and to top up on water.
So that's Four Corners.
Though seemingly desolate in places, and very different from the terrain I rode through all morning, there was a quiet beauty to this part of the country. Economics and politics aside, discussing just the landscape, there was a harsh ruggedness that stretches over everything. It means that when you do see life, it's all the more rewarding to think of the struggle that that tree, that rabbit, that hawk must have endured in this climate and yet still thrived. It's pretty awesome, and it gives a solitary rider lots of time to think, to ponder, and to remember why we do this. Well into Arizona at this point and making really good time toward Flagstaff. The sun has cooled off from the flat stretches only an hour before, and spirits are feeling peppy once again. This is a portion of the ride I'd done in my head dozens of times. I visited Arizona on a number of occasions before this. My parents had been living in Arizona for a few years at this point, and it doesn't take much to twist my rubber arm into hiking trips. But I'd never come on my bike. I'd been on these roads in a van, and even in that they were fantastic. So I knew, without a doubt, I was going to love Flagstaff to Sedona. I was not wrong. If you do like the content on this channel, be sure to like and subscribe. Less than 20% of you viewing are actually subscribed, so smash that bell icon to get notified. And if you do want to help this channel, just share the videos on social media, get the word out there. It's genuinely appreciated. Pulling into Sedona, I see my mom at the end of her driveway, and I couldn't help but get excited. I was tired, and I'd earned a good night's sleep. A special thanks to all the cagers that played nicely, to Malls for just being an absolute beast on this trip, and well, all of them, and to Purple Planet for all the great music clips. And as always, ride safe and ride fun, and I'll see you on the next video.